Welcome everybody to another episode of the Nerd Continuity, where we talk about design, development, and all the other crazy sort of stuff that we find online. My name is Alex, I'm your host, and with me, as usual, my co-host, Chris Perko. Hello, Chris.
Hello. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. As I was telling you before, probably getting sick. You're almost healed, probably out of sickness, but we are on the weird moment where our body doesn't know what to do. Am I sick? Am I not sick? Am I gonna collapse? I don't know. Just, we'll
right.
see.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely blaming somebody at Laracon. People came from all over the world. Really, we had somebody from there from Japan. So
Nice.
somebody brought some crud and gave it to me.
Yeah, so probably you got some exotic sickness.
Yes.
Your body doesn't understand what's going on there. How do I fight this? I don't know. And we haven't talked in weeks, like 3 weeks almost. What have you been up to other than attending that amazing conference?
A lot of traveling. About a week and a half before Laracon, I was in San Diego for an ESRI user conference out there. So I spent half of July away from home, out flying around and catching sicknesses. And I haven't had a whole lot of time to mess around with any of my side projects or anything. Just been learning a ton of stuff and traveling.
What is the ESRI conference? Like, what does it mean? What's the main topic?
ESRI,
ESRI?
stands for like environmental science, something or other. I forget. They are like the largest company you've never heard of.
That's a good. Is their own official tagline?
That's what one of the employees actually told me, because they're a massive company. The conference was 17,000 people attending. They do a lot of geospatial analytics software, so you can kind of think of it like Google Maps on crack. Like it's very powerful. They've got a ton of resources out there for like pulling up information on neighborhoods. Like, oh, this neighborhood is a middle class neighborhood. Majority of people have kids that go to public schools, and you can use that analytics to create your own maps. You can use it for business reasons. We're definitely looking at it for that, because we're wanting to make a tool for salespeople to go out door to door and try to sell telecom to these people.
Oh yeah.
So, knowing what neighborhoods have, from our information, knowing, okay, this neighborhood has good speed that we can give these people, and they have a pretty good income, so we can, market to them.
Yeah, interesting.
So it's a lot of stuff like that. It's they have so much stuff. They've got APIs for JavaScript, for C#, for pretty much like any language out there.
Yeah, I guess it's that type of company that if you don't have a specific, I wouldn't say issue, but if you don't have a specific goal to achieve, you will never use their service, because they're such like so specific and so targeted. That's why probably it's not like worldwide famous, because yes, it's largely used, but not as a day-to-day thing. Like, I don't know, the Twitter API, stupid things like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's used by a lot of government entities.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people there from different governments. Met people from police departments that were using it for, modeling traffic flows in areas and figuring out how to better route people around like a football game or something. So,
yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, so it's a very a niche idea, but I mean they're huge.
Yeah, I bet.
It was actually held where the San Diego Comic-Con is at, and it's a massive place. And when we were there, it was 1 week before Comic-Con, so they were already getting the big posters up and everything for the Comic-Con.
It was a fake Comic-Con.
Yeah. A bunch of nerds there.
It was like the same people. Like people that attended the conference probably stayed a week longer.
Oh yeah, I would have loved to stay. But
oh yeah, me too, man.
San Diego is expensive.
Really? I've never been there. It's because of Comic-Con or because of the ESRI conference?
I don't know. I mean, I think California in general is pretty expensive.
Yes, it is.
My hotel room, it was nothing fancy, but for the 5 nights I think I was there, it ran $1,500.
Holy
Yeah.
What?
And I wasn't even at the conference. We were a good mile walk away from the convention center.
Oh
So
yeah, it was like the middle class
yeah.
hotel with no room service and kind of like slightly smelly carpet and stuff like that, right? That type of conference. No. Well, yeah. Well, you did a lot of things. You were traveling, so it's kind of normal that you feel sick, especially when you don't stay at home and you don't let your body rest. You keep traveling,
Right.
you keep attending conference. You have to keep your attention span always at 100. You can never relax. It's normal that you fight a cold longer than usual.
Oh yeah. And then jumping between time zones every week was
Oh man.
not a lot of fun.
Daunting. Yeah, well, that's good. I've been doing boring things mostly. It's just like coding a lot, recording tutorials, and trying to organize things. Like my System 76 laptop broke. Like the hinge of the monitor, the top left hinge of the monitor, just like snapped, and the entire chassis of the laptop opened in half, and I was so scared. So I sent him in. I shipped it to Denver for repair, and because I didn't have a like a Linux computer, like a Linux laptop to run Elementary OS, I decided to buy SSD drive and put it on my HTPC to dual boot with Pop OS. And I've been slightly coding Elementary OS apps on the HTPC, which coding in front of a television, it's really, really weird. You get your eyes get tired super quickly.
I'm sure, yeah.
It's not recommended, not at all. But yeah, hopefully I'm gonna get my laptop back soon because I miss it a lot. And and that's it. Like pretty standard 3 weeks of work, nothing major, so we can jump right into the news of this week. So the main topic of this episode, basically you're gonna give us sort of like a full in-depth report of the Laracon, the conference about Laravel that you attended almost 3 weeks ago now, 2 weeks ago. When was that?
Yeah, it was the second to last week in July, I think.
Yeah, so and a little bit of time passed, probably the hype passed, but there are a bunch of insights that you gain from the conference. We're going to talk about it, and it's going to be pretty interesting. But we start with the usual weekly news, and there are a bunch of funny things and a bunch of more serious things. Let's start with a silly stuff. So the Snapchat source code, I don't know if you were aware of this, if you read it, but it was leaked on GitHub. And these happened in May, and the developers of Snapchat were super quick to just file a copyright strike against that source code, and was taken down pretty immediately. But of course, as you know, the internet is a dumpster. So the code was copied multiple times, and now it's floating around. You can tap it, you can check it. And some developers analyzed this code, and there's a developer from the Next Web that created an article about how the Snapchat source code, or the specific portion that was leaked, it's actually clean in terms of not having any bad words, swear words, or insults, or aggressions, or comments, super aggressive comments that if you delete this line, I'm gonna kill you in your sleep, or stuff like that. Which is kind of unusual for a big company.
Yes, I know I've left some pretty mean comments in code. I had one project where there was a comment in the code that just said something like, "Wait for the yellow card." And the code had nothing to do with yellow cards, or there was nothing called a card. And so I just left a comment underneath it, and I was like, "WTF is this? I don't know. What are we talking about? Yellow cards?"
It's like the Matrix, the first Matrix, follow the white rabbit. Same exactly. Cryptic message. What the fuck?
Or, I've just left things like, "We're doing this because the data team told me to, and I have to do it."
No, exactly.
It's not my fault this code sucks, but this is why we're doing it.
Yeah, and it usually happens all the time with big big code base that are mostly internal, they're not like publicly accessible by the users or the community, and just you and another developer always work on this code. Not even your boss looks at the code because it doesn't know anything about coding. So sometimes happens that you write the 20th variable to double check why a PHP unit keeps failing, and you write this f bomb variable, like it's stupid dumbass loop or stuff like that. And this guy at the Next Web wrote this article by comparing the source code from MS-DOS portion of the code that Microsoft released of Microsoft Word. And there are some hilarious things, like there's a function literally read like another fucking outer range jump.
Yes.
How what's your story behind this? Like, how can you reach that point where you actually, but it's properly written, like it respects the like lowercase and underscores, like the syntax. It's properly written. All these super aggressive comments. If you change tabs to space, you will be killed.
Yeah. It fucks up the build process.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Have you ever, like, other than those couple of things that you told us, have you ever actually wrote something really aggressive, or like you wrote some code that you don't want anyone to touch it, and you wrote something like, I don't know, some stupid variables or some aggressive comments?
I don't think I've ever written anything that aggressive. I usually take out my feelings verbally, especially, I work from home, so I can just yell at the wall if I want to. So, but yeah, I mean, with coding, you got to vent, you got to get it out of your system, because, coding is frustrating. You run into things, especially dealing with management wanting things a certain way, and you're like, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? We're wasting our time. It happens.
It happens a lot. And I don't remember now the name, but I remember there was a developer that wrote a small Node.js app that was sending a notification every time. I think it's a Twitter account now, but it was sending a notification every time someone was pushing to Git with a commit with a word like fucking or shit inside the commit, the Git.
Yeah,
commit.
It's still active. I think it's called developer swearing.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's gotten better, because when it first came out, it was picking up on some things that were not curse words, or they were like typos, and there was like, this doesn't make sense. But yeah, a lot of them are, like I just fucking suck at coding. Git push.
Yes, exactly. I don't know why this fucking thing doesn't work. Push.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. Well, it's frustrating, as you said. It's like, it's a lonely word, and sometimes you don't know why things happen.
Yeah, exactly.
The next news is about the Dev.to, or how do you call it? Do you call it like Dev.to?
I've said Dev.to, but I'm not sure.
I think it's the intended way of saying it, because it's like, it's a pun on like a function, right? I guess.
Ah, yeah. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Dev.to, no, whatever. But yeah, so the Dev.to or Dev.to forum, community, platform, whatever you want to call it, they released their source code on GitHub publicly, completely open source. And they became pretty famous. They became like trendy, one of the first trendy open source project in the GitHub list of trendy open source projects. And they wrote an article about how it is to be the Justin Bieber of open source, which is pretty funny. Have you had the chance to take a look at their source code?
I have not, and I'm not a Rails developer, but it seems like people are saying that the code is just a mess.
Yes, I read that.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice to hear, though, because like we talk a lot about like clean coding, and we're always trying to write the best code so it's reusable and easy to maintain. It was kind of interesting to see a product that has become so successful and is still completely crappy code. Like,
it is indeed. Yes. I was surprised that their code base was basically all in Ruby on Rails. I personally wouldn't be my first choice as a code base for a community. Especially they started this project to create a sort of like this large developers community. I would have picked something more sort of like modern, more stable. But I guess like, yeah, whatever. They like Ruby on Rails, so they started with Ruby on Rails. But yeah, they admit it. Like, we're a pretty standard Rails mess.
Yeah.
We didn't get here because we write perfect code. Like,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, and it's it's surprising to see that Rails is still pretty popular. When I used to go to meetups in San Antonio a few years back, there were a lot of the people there were Rails developers, and that's what they did for a living. And I was always surprised. I was like, man, that thing is still around, and like people are actually working professionally in it. It's I think that something like Laravel is a lot more modern and
Yeah.
easier to use, but yeah, I mean, I guess it still has its place.
Oh yeah, definitely. It still has a strong community. So, like, there are some developers that are strongly committed to using Rails, and I guess this is an example of. I don't know if you extensively use the Dev.to website, but I remember a couple of months ago I was really into it, like accessing every time. I was accessing this more than Reddit to get my news and watch my things. I love their series of explain things like I was 5. That's really handy for me.
Yeah.
And the front end of this thing is snappy. Like, it never glitched one single thing. It's so fast. I never had a problem. And the front end is fully built in Preact, which is
Oh, interesting.
I guess it's a sort of like a confirmation that something that we all know as like senior developers, but we don't know it as a junior developer. It doesn't really matter which code you pick or like which framework you use. If you write decent code that works, even if it's written like shit and it's all messy, if you write it properly and you do all the right things, your software will work. It's web technology. Is like,
Sure.
it's not that hard actually.
I don't know if you've given the progressive web app a chance on your like a mobile device.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so if you visit Dev.to or Dev.to, whatever,
Yeah.
on your phone, and I don't know, I think you have an iPhone, right?
No, I have a OnePlus 3.
Oh, you have one plus three. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it should pop up and say like if you add this to your home screen, you'll get a better experience. And basically, what a progressive web app does is it wraps up the application in like its own little application shell. So you add a link to your home page or your home screen on Android or iOS. It's recently come to the platform, I believe. And then you basically, it's not just a link to the website. It actually opens up in its own application, and it's really fast and everything. And then but it's not really like installed to your device. It's because you can just drag it up and delete it. It's pretty cool. And to do that, all you really need to do is set up a manifest on your website, and anybody can add it to their home screen and run it in its own little shell. There's a little bit more to it if you want to do like service workers and things, but the basics of it's pretty simple.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I remember like I did it in WordPress for a client because Jetpack has this option. Automatically, you can just check a checkbox and it creates all the little things for you to generate this web app. But yeah, I just did it while you were talking. I installed it. I just added it to my home screen. Yeah, it's cool. It doesn't open in Chrome. It opens in its own little sort of like native wrapper.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I guess it respects all the things that are necessary in order to be listed as a PWA, right? Like offline loading and progressive loading of all the content and all this kind of
Right.
shenanigans.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool indeed. Yeah, that's these. I know I have a couple of developers friends that they hate these sort of like blending between native and non-native, like in progressive, and they before it was like up until a couple of years ago was called like a hybrid apps that you were able to run web apps in a wrapper container with like sort of like Cordova or PhoneGap. Those were the framework. They're still on, they're still used, but I don't know if they're used as much because now
I did an app with Ionic and I thought it was okay, but Building the app was pretty easy because it's just JavaScript or Angular or whatever.
Yeah.
But when it gets down to like dealing with device stuff with Cordova, I don't know, it was always just a pain. Like, okay, I need to integrate with Google Play Services. All right,
Yeah.
how do I even do that? And so I don't know. I think it just comes down to time. If you have the time to build a native iOS and a native Android and a web app and a desktop app, like go for it. But a lot of times you don't have the time to write 4 or 5 apps to
Yeah, exactly.
one thing.
It's daunting, especially to maintain those. Actually,
Yeah.
the Dev.to developers are currently building native apps for Apple and Android, which I'm surprised. Okay, next bit of news. It's about the sponsor of this fantastic podcast. It's SkySilk.com, the VPS cloud maintainer. They're releasing new premium VPS services. Actually, if you're a beta tester right now, the premium service is available for you to test it for free. And they told me that they're actually going live soon, probably at the end of this week or early next week. And they kind of set the prices for where they're going to go live. And the price, I'm so impressed. I'm so stoked because the basic tier that you can get is for $1 a month, just $1 a month.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That's so cheap, and you get like you don't get sort of like a piss bucket of a VPS. It's like really good. You get like 500 gigabytes of transfer. You get a core of machine and like 1 gigabyte of RAM for 512 megabyte. I don't. It's funny enough. Right now, their website is down. I was trying to access it. But they sent a communication to everyone like they're having issues with their DNS and they're gonna be back soon. But it's their price point is impressive, and to get the same stats or the same specs of DigitalOcean Droplet, their price is actually $2 per month. So if you want the same specs that you pay $5 a month for DigitalOcean, it's actually $2 per month. And I'm amazed. I have no idea. I'm trying to set up an interview with one of the spokesperson because I don't know if it's a sustainable business model. Like, is it too cheap? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's it's one of those things that it could turn you off because you're like, oh, maybe it's too cheap. Maybe it's gonna crash all the time or something. So
yeah, it's true.
So it'll be interesting to see how they do once they fully launch and. Hopefully it's super stable and everything. I'm definitely going to be looking at least using it for like test environments. I use DigitalOcean. I've been with them for years, but if this is just as stable and cheaper, I mean, I would switch.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I've been using it for the past 5 months now, and today is the only day where it's down. Like it has never been down. So probably they have like some random issues, but they kept adding stuff. Now they have like another server farm on the East Coast. Before it was just on the West Coast, like California. Now they have it on the East Coast. They're planning to open other in the future. They're planning to open one in Europe. So it's just like they're expanding pretty quickly, and yeah, I love it. It's pretty great. So definitely check SkySilk.com if you wanna. For now, still in beta, you can grab a free VPS to use it, and when they get out of beta, you get 25% off forever for life, even from that $1 a month, which is nothing. So you can pay 75 cents per month for a VPS. It's insane. Okay, the last bit of news before passing on the main topic is Google and Microsoft. They just discovered another vulnerability in the CPUs, in all the CPUs of the world. Another variation of the Meltdown and Spectre vulnerabilities. Which now it's getting sort of like a repetitive story. It's not news anymore. It's just, okay, CPUs are terrible again.
Yeah.
Nothing has been fixed.
Right.
And I don't know if you noticed, but every time they find a vulnerability like this, which is terrible, like it's not, oh, there's a small leak or there's a small bug that is not really a big deal. If you do something really complicated, probably you can exploit it, but not that much. when they find these things are like massive holes that you just need a web browser and a JavaScript script running on a web page in order to exploit these vulnerabilities. They're just so terrible.
Oh yeah, and with the last one, I remember DigitalOcean had to like take down all the servers one day and patch them, and then they even sent out emails and they were like, log into your VPS and run these commands to help protect against Spectre. And yeah, it's a big issue.
Yeah, I think it's like, well, I don't know anything about architecture, like CPU architecture, like literally no knowledge at all. But it's written everywhere that it's a design architecture fault. Like when they were designing the CPU and the architecture of the CPU, they created these massive bugs that they didn't find out and they didn't think about it. So just like stop it. Just don't keep producing CPUs with the same design process. I don't know. Probably it's a stupid thing to do because I don't know how the process works and like what's involved behind that. But they've been patched like for the past year. Pretty much all the major server providers and also Intel and AMD, they've been releasing patches to fix this thing. But every time the spikes in CPUs or memory usage were drastically increasing every time a new patch was installed. And now also Google Chrome, that the new version is gonna fix these new Spectre and Meltdown issues, is expecting to spike the consumption of CPU up to 35%.
Wow.
Which is brutal.
Yeah.
Why? Like your browser is gonna consume like 3/4 of your CPU and 3/4 of your RAM, basically.
Oh yeah. I mean, you already need 32 gigs of RAM to run Chrome, so
just to run.
Why not just take up your whole CPU?
Just to watch YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Fucking terrible. Like I don't it's I don't know. I don't know anything about this thing, but it like it feels super weird that once after 1 month like a new issue is found and it doesn't matter. Intel keeps releasing new chipsets. Hey, there's a new version i9 with hyper-threading and 28 cores. But yeah, anyway, same vulnerability issue that you can just a user can access your password clear while you're typing in the browser. So good. Whatever. So disappointed. I've been trying to be more positive. Like it was like sort of like one of my many goals. Like for the next episodes of the podcast, I want to be more positive and I just want to just talk about positive things and not just ranting all the time about everything. But it's really hard.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of bad news.
Yes, exactly. Okay, let's switch to something more positive, more fun, and I'm gonna give you the floor because you attended Laracon. So first, tell us about like what happened, like when you arrived the first time. This was your first Laracon, right?
Yes, this was my first one. I was supposed to go last year, but we ended up canceling the trip because of some deadlines that we had to hit, sadly. So this was my first one. Is up in Chicago. I'd never been to Chicago before. It's an awesome city. They have some amazing pizza.
Oh yes.
So it was really cool. I mean, it was a good time to go. End of July, so it wasn't too hot. We were there right before Lollapalooza, so they were getting ready for that big festival, and yeah, so Chicago was a lot of fun. Laracon itself was 2 full days. I kind of wish it was split over 3 days because the days were very long. You have to get there early, get registered and everything, and then the conference would go from like 9:30 a.m. till I think 5:30.
Oh wow.
Or no, I'm sorry, later than that. The last talk started at 5:30, and then at 6:30 was the after party. So, so it was a full day of being at the event and seeing talks and everything. So, it was a lot of fun though. I met a lot of really good developers. I met one guy who was actually interviewing this week for the position at our job that we have open.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I got to meet a lot of people. I got to meet people that I've talked to on Twitter before, and it's like, I don't know, seeing people in person when you've only seen this little tiny circle is,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it's fun.
But yeah, I mean, overall, all the talks were fantastic.
Hmm.
There was a code competition where they gave out puzzles like 3 times a day, and you had to use code to solve them. And I actually got like best overall on day one. Um,
Boom. Look at
yeah.
that. Look at
uh,
you.
yeah. So the second day, though, the last puzzle, I was really struggling with the last one, and I was like, you know what? I just want to go drink some beer and hang out. So I'll deal with it later. And I
Mhm.
never went back to it, but
It doesn't matter. Was
yeah.
that a requirement? Like, if you don't solve the puzzle, you cannot attend the next event or like, stuff like that?
No. Yeah, so the way it worked was they released a puzzle like at 9:30, like 12:30 or 1, and then at like 5:30 at night.
Hmm.
And so what would happen is whoever got it done first got 100 points for that puzzle.
Hmm.
And the next person got 99, the next person got 98.
Oh.
So the sooner you solved it, the more points you got. Um, and then at the end of the day, it was just kind of whoever has the most is on the leaderboard. And um, yeah, so it was pretty cool. I got some really cool swag from Titan, which is a consulting company up in Chicago.
Hmm.
Um, really nice people. I actually didn't even know that I won until after I left the event on Thursday night, and so I was tweeting them and I was like, "Well, can I come by the office or something?" And they were like, "Oh no, we'll just mail it to your house." I was like, "All right, cool."
Okay. Ah, they're nice.
Oh yeah, yeah, it was awesome.
Nice.
Um, Yeah, so I want to talk about a few things
Hmm.
from the event. One was this company, I think they are pronounced Spacey. They're in Belgium. They are also a Laravel consulting company, but they do a ton of open source
Oh,
projects.
yeah.
Have you used the media library by them?
Not the media library. I think I used like 3 or 4 packages from them. Like the
Hmm.
before Laravel had the passport integration, I used the OAuth authentication
Oh,
from
okay.
from them. I think it's not maintained anymore. And then I use another couple of packages like the social media login where you can log
Mhm.
with Facebook, Google, and other stuff. And that's it, I guess. But yeah, no, I know that, but never use the media library. What does it do?
So it does a lot.
Of
First of
course.
all, yeah. First of all, it takes away a lot of the pain of dealing with files.
Hmm.
If you have a form, you're going to upload a file. Um, you just kind of set it up and be like, "Hey, I've got this image. I want you to save it to this model." And then later, if I have the model and I say I want to get the image, it'll just give you the file. Um, it'll give it to you in several different ways. You can get just the URL. It actually has a blade directive so that it creates an image itself, like an actual image tag with the image in it.
Hmm.
You can actually just say, I want to download it. Um, but some of the most impressive stuff is with its compression and with its responsive image loading. I don't know if you've ever used like the source set attribute on images where you give it like 10 different versions of the
Yeah.
image. Yeah. So it does that automatically. So you
Oh
can
yeah.
tell it, hey, I've got this image. I want you to save it responsively. And when you save it, it does take a little time because it makes,
Hmm.
like 20 different versions of it. But then when you load it on your site, it automatically loads the little tiny image blown up. So it's all blurry, kind of like you see on like a Medium post.
Yes.
And then it goes and gets, all right, what's the best resolution for this device? Goes and gets it and loads it and fades it in real nicely. And it's so easy to use and it's amazing. So I'm going to use it from now on for any kind of images on any Laravel project that I'm doing.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, no, it's definitely great. It's something that all the announcements that were done at Laracon, it's kind of like slightly excited me and slightly pissed me off because all the things that they announced, all these new packages and new add-ons, I basically built them for the past 3 months or 4 months because we need a sort of like responsive media uploading library that when you upload something, generates different resolution, then it stores and then attaches to the model and then returns based on the resolution of the browser. And then Spatie, whatever, releases this library, like, oh, damn it, now.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I felt the same way with Nova, which was the next point where I talk about.
Yeah, man.
Because, like, we've built so many, like, framework pieces to help build us, forms faster and help with all the CRUD stuff and deal with, like, all right, you're an admin user, you can delete this. You're not an admin, you can't delete it. You can only see it. And
yes.
I didn't do anywhere near as good of a job as what Taylor did with Nova, but it's kind of like if this was out a year ago, we could have spent $100, put it in there, and it would have saved me countless hours in development.
Same thing. Like also the other developer in my company, like as soon as Taylor unveiled Nova, he wrote me like, oh yes, we could have saved 6 months of development in doing our admin dashboard. That surprisingly, privately, I'm going to share a screenshot of our admin dashboard. It looks really, really similar to Nova. It's like, I'm like, Jesus, like why it's so similar.
Yeah. And, sadly it's not free, but at the same time, like, if you're just doing like a side project, like spending $100 on a third-party thing like this is like, I don't want to spend $100. I'm not even gonna make a single dollar off this project.
True. Yes.
But if you think about it, like if you're doing contract work, like right now, I was thinking about integrating Nova for a client. $100 for me, that's to save me so many hours developing. Like it's easily worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. You can bill it to the client and like just do a quick calculation of all the hours that you're going to spend in developing, even like at the simplest admin dashboard. You have to do all sorts of controllers and all sort of views separated from the front end, and you have to be sure maybe if the back end it's also has a different style sheet or like visually is different from the front end, you need to split the assets and the source files in order to not have like a massive SCSS just to have both front end and back end all together. So yeah, it saves it's heaven. So it's gonna be really, really helpful for those type of projects.
Oh yeah, I can't wait till it's released. I really want to get my hands on a copy just to like review it and do like some YouTube videos on it. But I'm like $100 for a YouTube video.
Yeah, it's fine. It's totally fine. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna fucking tear it apart and look at it. Yeah. So it's I looked at the presentation, but I was looking at like with an eye. I was looking at a presentation. The other eye I was keep working because it was in the middle of the day. I'm not sure if I got it wrong, but is that it's like automatically generates the sections based on your models that you have?
Yeah, I think you have to give the model a trait. But yeah, you can, or no, I think what it was there was like almost like a separate model that corresponds to the model you want a section for. And that's where you put in all the configuration for what you want to see in the Nova panel.
So all the like you're not gonna like Nova is not gonna automatically get all the fields that you have in the model and generate the table for you. Just you have the ability to specify like what you want in tables, what's the structure of your views and all this kind of stuff, right?
Right. Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, like if you just basically tell it like, I want you to build a panel for this model, it'll automatically give you all the CRUD forms, the grids, and all that. But then you can go a step further and say like, all right, I want certain filters. Like I want to be able to see the models that have been soft deleted, or I want to make a filter so that I can see, where this value is greater than a certain number and sort it that way. And so it gives you a lot of flexibility to build your own thing.
Yeah.
But it also gives you like all the CRUD stuff just immediately.
Yeah, it's super helpful. So it's fully built in Vue.js, right?
Yeah, it's a spa.
Oh my god, I'm so
But it's all
pissed.
configured in PHP, which is wonderful because I love the way Taylor does all the PHP configuration.
I'm so upset.
I know.
I'm extremely upset. Excited but upset. So did you have like how much Taylor revealed of it? Like, did he show how he's handling the routes of all the pages, how he's handling like a hard reload, if it happens a hard reload, all this kind of stuff?
He didn't, but I think the docs are going to be available like publicly, kind of like on Laravel Spark. Like you can
Yeah.
go and read the docs without even buying
Yeah.
the package.
Sure.
So no, he didn't really go into that. It was more of just like, I'm gonna show you all this awesome stuff, and everybody
Of course.
cheers every 2 seconds.
Jesus. He's a rock star. It's so
He is,
upsetting.
yeah.
So I have a question for you. That is like sort of like a broad question, but it's something that I've been thinking recently. Like also, I think like Laravel started this trend of having something like a pre-built piece of software that helps you a lot as a developer in building your own application and gets out of the way all those tedious parts of setting up your CRUD or setting up your database connections, your migrations, and all this kind of stuff. Like it gives you a platform where you can actually start building and not wasting time, quote unquote, wasting time in setting things up. The more we go on and the more I see Laravel and all these also third-party packages like the Spacey one and others that I currently use, they are basically taking care of doing everything. So sometimes I find myself spending a day only wiring up portions of an application or portions of Laravel and hooking it up to that package and then configuring the packages to make it work properly with my data, and that's it. I don't actually create anything new. I just follow the documentation and just hook things up like they were supposed to be, and I have what I need. Is it bad? Is it something that is gonna bite me in the ass in a couple of years?
I don't know. I think, we've seen the way technology has accelerated over, the many decades. And if you think about if you had to code back in the day when you were just doing like assembly, like, I mean, you had to write all the code for all the displays and everything and really low level stuff. And we don't have to handle that anymore. I mean, when was the last time you actually did some garbage collection code and dealt with that kind of stuff? So I think it's just we're moving forward in a way that's making it easier to build applications. Like where I work at, what we're trying to do now that we're hiring like a junior to mid-level developer is we're trying to kind of build those packages, build it so that we can hand off the configuration and just the wiring up to like a junior or mid-level developer, and we can focus on building the more complex things or building the our own personal brand of a framework that allows them to build things faster. So I don't think it'll bite you in the ass.
Okay.
It's just kind of the way things are moving.
Yeah, no, it's just the constant fear of being replaced or like, am I outdated? Like all these things. Because like, for example, I opened the media library package, the source code on GitHub, and I tried to understand what they did. And I was like, I have no idea that you could do something like that. I have no idea how they did it. And I'm honestly impressed, and I'm literally like impressed on how Nova is gonna automate all those things. That for me, it's kind of like, is this really possible? Is this something that if I had to do by myself, like I couldn't have done it? And meanwhile, I remember before, like even at the beginning, like the first releases of Laravel, like the most, like even with Laravel 5, all the things that were getting pushed and getting released, I was 100% understanding everything. Like, oh, I know how this works. And I did the same for my AWPS starter theme for WordPress. I recreated sort of like the artisan, like a really streamlined artisan sort of like command line tool. But because all those things are really clear and really easy to reproduce. And now I see that all these new packages, new implementation are going towards a level of abstraction that it's kind of like frightening. And it's like, yes, I'm going to use them, but I really want to spend time in understand how they work. Because if one day they're not available anymore, I don't want to be stuck. I want to be able to create them by myself or like maintain them by myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, am I just like putting my tinfoil hat and being like an old crazy person.
Yeah, for things like image manipulation, like I don't know how any of that stuff works. And even in the docs for the media library, it for like a Linux environment, I think they also have some scripts for like the Mac version. It has you install like a bunch of stuff that all has to do with like compression and image manipulation because I mean, and I don't know how that stuff works. And they're just kind of using those libraries on top of this library.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, it's, I don't know how much, I haven't looked at their source code, so I don't know how much they actually did and handed off to existing services.
So I'm going to deal with my fear and study these things and try to understand as much as possible. But yeah, no, it's exciting. Overall, it's absolutely exciting stuff.
Last thing I had for Laracon was there was a talk near the end of the second day by a guy named Caleb Porzio. His talk was for embracing the backend, and he basically took a demo of like a Twitter clone, basically on seeing tweets and posting tweets, and it was built very responsively with like Vue, I believe he was using. It was either Vue or React, but it was basically a front end framework that was doing a lot of Ajax requests and all that stuff. Basically a SPA, and he was showing moving it from a SPA back to kind of like your typical MVC framework. And he was saying that, you get a lot of things like it's easier to write tests for it. I don't know. In my opinion, it was a worse user experience because it was things like, okay, you type your tweet and hit post. Let's just, instead of, actually posting to the server, adding that tweet onto the list of tweets, let's just refresh the page.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, it's kind of going backwards. Like everybody expects a real snappy user experience right now.
Yeah.
I mean, even like you load Facebook and you see all the posts and they haven't loaded yet, but you see a bunch of posts with, I forget what they're called, like a ghost image or something.
Yeah.
Where it's like a bunch of gray lines.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an immediate, you immediately know something's loading here. Something's working. But if you're just waiting for the page to load and loads all at once, like, I don't know, it seems very, 5 or 10 years ago. So I think he had some good points. I think the example seemed a little severe, because I kind of do a mix when I do my side projects. I do mostly MVC, but then the parts that need to be more like Ajax centric, I just have kind of standalone Vue components sprinkled around on my site.
Yeah.
So, you click a button to add the same to the cart. Okay, that just sends off an Ajax request. I don't need to refresh the page or anything. But I still have separate pages that are doing, full post back type things.
Yes.
And I think it's kind of a good middle ground because you still get a good user experience on the things that you expect to work asynchronously, but you still get the speed of building things just with like Laravel MVC. It's so easy to just be like, make me a controller and here's a view and I'm just going to show it and you're done.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to be like, okay, I got to set up the view routing and then handling all the Ajax requests for getting all the data and everything. So
the pain,
yeah. So I talked to a few people after the conference and they kind of felt the same way. Like it's, he had some good points, but it just kind of seemed a little extreme to just be like, we're going to just do everything post back. So we're going to refresh the page whenever we want, and.
So what does he mean with easier to test? Was he talking about PHP unit or was he talking about Dusk and like front end test?
Yeah, he was more talking about like JavaScript testing. I've always struggled with JavaScript testing. I feel like, especially like with AngularJS, it was a mess. It just took so long to figure out how to test something like a controller or a service. And it is very easy to just write a PHP unit test to be like, hey, if I get this request, I should see this thing on the page. It's very easy to write. It's very quick. So I think he had some points around there.
Yeah, I kind of like strongly disagree as well. I didn't hear the talk, but I can, like, from personal experience, I can tell that in my opinion, it's easier to test API endpoints with PHP and then delegate the entire front end to Jets or Mocha, that recent updates of these two testing frameworks, they're great. Like, it's really easy to set them up. You don't have to manually write tests anymore to test your JavaScript controllers or your methods. That was a shit show, really. But like today, it's really almost automated. And also with Laravel Dusk automatically integrate, you can test the front end.
Yeah, Laravel Dusk is super nice.
They just released version 4, which implements a lot of new cool extra things. And it's just as easy as writing unit test in PHP, literally like click this, expect this thing to do this thing, and that's it.
And you can still do things like logging in as a user using the standard Laravel stuff. Like,
true.
Right, here's my user factory, create a new user where it's an admin user, and I want to use this user and go to this webpage. And you don't have to do I want to test this thing, but we have to log in again.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I don't see it's definitely easier to build because you're dealing with just one code base, and you reload the page, so you don't have to take care of what happens if the user goes back with a browser back button or reloads the page while an AJAX request for posting the tweet is in process. That there are so many issues that could open the fact that you're using SPA, but come on, really, don't go backward. We're moving forward to this, just like the smooth web experience. Probably like an argument, I don't know if he added this argument into his talk related about the RAM and CPU consumptions of web browsers. Did he put this point?
No, we didn't talk about that, but no, that is a very good point. Moving to a SPA, you push a lot of the processing off to the clients.
Exactly.
Which is great if your website is getting 1 million users a day. You don't want to have all that processing on one server.
Yeah,
it's going to get very expensive.
Yeah, it's true. Interesting. Well, we'll see. Now we WebAssembly also we can.
Yes.
Everything is gonna get mismatched and whatever. It doesn't exist anymore. Backend, frontend, and SPA, PWA, everything. It's one thing, and everything can be used everywhere. Whatever.
Yeah, and the last thing I wanted to talk about this kind of comes from Laracon, but I've noticed it just a lot over the last couple of years. While I was at Laracon, it was like if you looked out into the audience, it was a glowing sea of Apple computers. And I wanted to talk to you because I've actually never worked on a Mac. And I know you've had Macs in the past and you've recently kind of switched to Linux. So other than I understand that for like design, like Macs over Linux especially, just the software choices are going to completely trump it. But like, why are so many developers using Macs? I feel like Linux is a great development environment and it doesn't cost an arm and an organ to buy a new Linux computer.
True, that's true. So there are a lot of answers to this question. The first one is like developers mostly are stupid. And I'm stupid as well. Whenever a new MacBook comes out, I'm like, oh my god, it's so beautiful, even if I know that it's a stupid machine, that it's overpriced and it's running like 2 years old hardware, and that it's just like it doesn't make sense, but we're all like that. The fact is that you saw all these glowing apples gives you the understanding that all those computers are at least 2 years old, almost 3, because Apple is not releasing any more laptops with glowing Apple logo.
Oh, really?
Yes. The new version since 2016, I guess. I'm not sure, but yeah, definitely from 2017, no more glowing logo, because they're making it super thin and super light, so they're removing as much as possible. There's no backlight anymore anywhere, so the logo is just like a reflective glass, I guess.
Okay.
So everyone is still running an older version of a MacBook, which are great. MacBook 2015, which is what I asked my boss and my company to buy for me when I started. Like, give me a refurbished, maxed out MacBook Pro from late 2015, because that was the last moment where MacBooks had, I don't know, 10 different ports, like 4
Right.
USB, the SD card reader, headphone jack, and all this kind of good stuff. And those machines are amazing. They're super fast, super quiet. And macOS is, even if it's a proprietary operating system, is based on Unix.
Hmm.
It's what is that? A modified version of FreeDOS or something? I'm not 100% sure.
Right, which is definitely a pro for development, especially compared to like a Windows machine.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's so like, and it's also thanks to Laravel. You have Laravel Valet that you install it with a script and
Hmm.
automatically sets for you nginx PHP, the latest version, and then you have Composer. And macOS is the only operating system where you can run Brew, and Brew allows you to install everything, all the dependencies, all the packages. Composer works right off the bat. It's like,
Oh, nice.
it's a really solid operating system for development because it's really easy to set it up. I'd say it's identical to Linux if you just use the terminal. Literally identical.
Right.
But up until a year ago or 2 years ago, laptops were horrible. Like looking,
Yeah.
like physically, like visually, they were really weird. They were bad.
Oh yeah. I mean,
That
my System 76 is about 5 years old, and I mean, it's a brick. It's
yeah,
massive. It's heavy. Yeah.
exactly. And if you're a developer that goes to conferences and travels a lot, you need a thin and solid, sturdy laptop. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not afraid. I don't feel shame in telling this, but Apple in 2015 was like, I think, the peak of laptop development from Apple. And also had a full HDMI port directly in there and two Thunderbolt ports. Like it was the best. And the trackpad, oh my God. Have you ever used an Apple trackpad?
I haven't, no.
It's so my. It looks like there's no latency, there's no issues. It's so smooth and it never had a single problem. While if you buy a laptop, it's a shot in the dark. Sometimes you have a crappy
Yeah.
trackpad that clicky and one button breaks
Right.
instead. Yeah, no. So I understand that point of view because I'm at the same. I have exactly the same laptop. Like I have the last series of laptops with the glowing Apple logo, and those are the best. Like it's 2 years old. It's still running like it was new.
That's good to
And
know.
yeah, no,
Yeah, because I've seen a
absolutely.
lot of people complaining about the new ones, like, oh, if you get this version of the MacBook, you're forced to get the stupid touch bar that nobody wants. And
Yes.
I've just seen a lot of people complaining about all kinds of things, and I was like, well, all these developers are buying them, and they're expensive. I don't understand.
Yeah, it's actually I don't know the markets. Like I haven't seen the statistics, but I think like Apple is transitioning from developers. Like the developer community is pissed because all these new versions of the MacBooks and MacBook Pros are mostly targeted for mainstream users
Hmm.
because you have just like two ports that are just like USB-C ports, and all the specs are lowered. Like there's CPU throttling. Like if you push it too hard, the CPU, the software automatically avoids the CPU to use the full potential just to avoid to get too hot. So it's thermal throttling, it's called.
Interesting.
And it doesn't allow you anymore to open it. It's just like a solid brick. You can open it anymore. You cannot replace the RAM. Like my laptop, my MacBook Pro 2015, I can open it and swap the RAM, swap the hard drive.
Oh, really?
It's not possible anymore. Everything is fucking soldered. It's just one piece of aluminum and that's it. So it's yeah, the new versions are not. That's what I feel. The new versions are not for developers. That's why in the last 2 years I've been in this crusade of switching to Linux permanently.
Yeah, and I love Linux. I love my System 76. My main complaint about this one, and it is older, is it's huge, it's heavy, and the battery life is terrible. Even after buying a bigger battery, it sucks. Like
Yes.
2 hours max.
Yeah.
And so this year I'm looking at getting a new laptop. I wanted to get a nice laptop earlier this year, but my original laptop I had broke when we were moving, and I was like, I don't
Mhm.
have the money for a laptop. I'm gonna spend $300 on eBay and get the System 76.
Yeah.
So I've been looking at laptops, and I like System 76 because they're very configurable.
Mhm.
But even like the new Galago Pros, I've been reading that their battery life is just not great.
Yes,
Um,
3 hours and
yeah,
something.
and it's like if I'm going to spend $1,200 on a laptop,
Mhm.
I want it to last all day.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at also like an XPS 13 from Dell,
Oh
their developer
yes.
edition. But if I want the high DPI screen on that one, it's like $1,500. So
Yeah.
like if I'm in that price range, then is it worth it just to get a Mac? Is it better to go Linux? It's like, what do I do? It's so hard, and
Oh yeah, I know.
I
It's a
wish I could just
conundrum.
I wish I could just get like 3 laptops, take them to my house, and have them for like a month, and then just send whatever two back.
Yeah. So System 76 has a 30-day returns policy, I guess, and full
Oh, nice.
refund. So you could do it. I think Apple as well. I think Apple has like 14 days.
Hmm.
But you can definitely do it. I was personally, I was also, because like when my laptop broke, I was so pissed. I started looking around like, nah, I'm gonna get a new one. It's like that. But I stopped that shenanigans. But I was looking also at the Lenovo, the new Lenovo, the ThinkPad X1 Carbon.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's so good. It's so slick and it's so sturdy. I went to a Microsoft store that we have here in Vancouver and I checked it. It's just like, it's amazing. It's so thin and light. It looks
Hmm.
like a sort of like an XPS, but it's just fantastic. Also the T series, like the T480S, still like the Lenovo ThinkPad T480S. It's pretty great. So there are like, luckily, all these manufacturers, also HP, like the new versions are
Hmm.
moving towards like more pleasing aesthetic, and they're kind of
Yeah.
like following the Apple trend. But the problem is that, as you experience, they're following also the trend of the price. Like they're so
Yeah,
fucking
I think part
expensive.
of it's just being thin, being able to get a battery that lasts for a long time, that is able to fit in a case like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and it's just so hard to pick a laptop.
I know. And unfortunately, in the Apple Store, the refurbished section now, there are not available anymore. Those 2015 versions.
Oh, really?
The oldest one that you can get has the stupid touch bar instead of the function keys, which
Right.
is it's dumb. It's
Yeah,
so dumb.
it is.
But yeah, so that's probably, these are one of like a bunch of reasons why every developer is using a Mac.
Yeah.
we'll see in the next couple of years, because we're gonna have to change this. They're gonna
Yeah.
last. So
And like you were talking about Valet for Linux,
Mhm.
I can't go back after installing it. It works amazingly.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like, oh, create a new Laravel project, link it to Valet, and now I've got my test environment set up.
yeah,
Done.
exactly. Yeah, it's beautiful. There's nothing else to say. It's beautiful. No, Linux is, it's amazing, and for development, that probably another thing why developers mostly pick Mac OS is that, because like actually it's more stable than
Yeah.
Linux. Like
Yeah.
honestly, sometimes you get those days even from like elementary OS or even from Pop OS that the other day I got a kernel panic because the latest version of the Linux kernel that was released has a bug with the motherboards that they have integrated Wi-Fi connectors. And my motherboard has an integrated Wi-Fi connector on my HTPC. I got a kernel panic. So I had to
Wow.
access in development mode from a live CD and roll back the Linux kernel and reinstall the updates and exclude the new version of the Linux kernel. All the things that if you're a developer and you have to work, you
Yeah.
don't want to spend 2 days in debugging your fucking Linux kernel.
Yeah, that is
You
true.
just
Yeah.
want to work. So yeah, macOS, sometimes you have glitches, sometimes it doesn't load, especially these latest operating systems are not as polished as they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I never had a day where I wasted an entire day in fixing a bug or fixing an issue of the operating system. It's always, oh, it doesn't work. Reboot. Okay, now it works. That's it.
Yeah.
turn it off and on again.
Well, that's a lot of really great information. I'll probably have a lot more conversations with you about some of this hardware as I try to decide what to do. I'm planning on buying something maybe around Black Friday when everything's cheaper.
Oh yeah, I was thinking the same. You know what we could do? We could buy, like, if we were like not sure about the laptop, I could buy one and you can buy the other one and then use it for a couple of weeks and then ship it to each other.
Yeah.
And test it again, and we can pick like what is the best. We can try.
Right.
Let's do it. Shipping is gonna be so expensive; it's not worth it. Okay, I guess we're at the end of the episode. Where can people find you, Chris?
You can find me at Chris J. Perko on Twitter. You can find me here on YouTube. Find me anywhere, I guess.
Do you have in schedules any new videos, especially for game development, which were really
Yes.
great?
I think I have like 5 or 6 more episodes planned for that, and I'm gonna try to hit it hard this week because between traveling and then getting sick at Laracon, I've not been able to record. I mean, we were supposed to do this episode last week, and I just could not do it with my throat. So so I really want to finish like that basic series and get it over with, and then I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna do another series real soon. I think I want to do just like more like one-off videos, kind of like I did the Laravel Slack notifications video.
Yes.
Because I feel like a series, I kind of hold myself. I'm like, I haven't released any videos on that series this week. I have to do it, and
it's daunting.
I just want to like come up with fun ideas and just have fun with it, and not have to worry about keeping to a schedule, because I know nobody keeps me to a schedule except myself, but I get that feeling like I haven't done it. I need to do it,
Yes, indeed. I can relate to that. Oh my God. But yeah, so you can find me at Alecad everywhere in all the places that you want. And of course, you can follow these podcasts on YouTube or Apple Podcasts or whatever it's called. It's not iTunes anymore. It's Apple Podcast. Because branding, or all your other favorite apps, because it's running on a RSS feed, so it should be picked up pretty much everywhere. And that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for listening to the episode. If you want, just send us questions on Twitter at NerdContinuity, or leave a comment underneath this video, and we talk to you in the next one. As usual, until the next one, happy coding.
Keep on hacking.
Nice.
There we go.
There you go.